Welcome to Truest Blood, the official True Blood podcast.
I'm Kristin Bauer.
And I'm Deborah Ann Wool.
And you've been invited in.
I want to do bad things with you. On Truest Blood.
Welcome back to Truest Blood, where we sink our fangs into the series episode by episode.
This week, we sample the emotional pie that is Cold Ground, written by Raelle Tucker and directed by Nick Gomez.
So this episode is all about Gran's funeral.
Yeah, it's a doozy. This is a very emotional episode.
It is. We talk about loss and grief and forgiveness.
Yep. In the episode, food plays a big role.
Yes, has an interesting spotlight this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, so does Anna Paquin. You know, I think we're really going to have to give her props this episode. She really nails it.
Yeah, it's a big Sookie episode here.
Mm-hmm.
And we also got to interview the incredible, spectacular, talented Adina Porter, and it's incredible how personal she was in this interview. I cried buckets.
Yeah, you should absolutely stick around and make sure you hear everything that she shares.
Yes, and about bringing Lettie Mae to life.
But first, this week on True Blood.
Sookie stands in shock at the sight of her grandmother's body when Bill and Sam make a surprise and possibly suspicious entrance. Each one vows to protect her, and things get a little competitive as they mark their romantic territory. Downstairs, the cops are no closer to a suspect, but the killer is closing in.
I suspect whoever did this is targeting women who associate with vampires.
You can't be serious. Adele Stackhouse and a vamp?
Oh, I don't think Sookie's grandmother was the intended victim.
Sookie, refusing to leave the home that Gran made for her, spends what is left of the night cleaning up her grandmother's blood.
The next day, the whole town has turned out for the wake, bringing condolences and comfort food aplenty. Tara and Lafayette look after Sookie as only true friends know how, until Jason, in a V and grief-induced rage, shows up and lashes out violently at his sister.
Jason.
What the fuck? It's your fault. Gran's dead because of you. Should have been you!
Oh, bitch, don't you lay a hand on her!
Screwing a vampire, Tara. A fucking vampire!
Tara and Lafayette send him and everyone else packing, leaving Sookie a Valium so she can finally rest. Outside, Bill and the friendly neighborhood dog stand guard.
We pick up in the morning at Gran's funeral. The event is more than flesh and blood can stand for Sookie, as she is forced to listen to everyone's uncharitable thoughts about her. Worse, Jason has secretly invited her estranged Uncle Bartlett, whose presence leaves Sookie deeply shaken. She runs out of the service, and it is Lettie Mae, of all people, to speak tearfully of Adele.
Adele Stackhouse took care of my baby when I couldn't. I'll always be grateful for that.
Tara is less impressed with her mother's about-face when she finds out Lettie Mae is there to ask for money. It seems she wants to have an exorcism.
Having lost her grandmother, been alienated by her town, and on the outs with her brother, Sookie finally breaks down while finishing off the last pie Gran ever made. The people of Bon Temps find many ways to process the day's events, but as she consumes each pecan, Sookie can think only of Bill. She runs across the cemetery to his home in her most virginal of nighties, and they consummate their new love in front of a roaring fire. She even allows him to bite her neck.
Do it. I want you to.
So we start with this wake at Sookie's house, which is now Sookie's house, was Gran's.
Right. That's a big transition for her immediately.
Yep.
There's that really interesting moment with Arlene where Arlene's like, aren't you going to move? And Sookie's like, no, this is where all the good stuff has happened. I like that idea that, that she sees it that way, that it's good that this is Gran's house, not a bad memory necessarily.
Yeah, that familiar is really comforting to her at this time.
Yeah. I wish we all had that sort of fortitude that Sookie has.
I know. I've had so much loss in my life. And I was just thinking, you read my mind, Deb. I wish I had that mind that could focus on the positive.
Well, I think, it's very true to her character. She's very practical in many ways, Sookie,
Right.
for, as many sort of romantic fantasies as she has. Really, her everyday life is very, get the work done, get the house chores done, get your brother in line. She's not really a dwell on the negative kind of a person.
No, thank goodness.
Yeah. What's interesting is we seem to sort of start from the perspective of the town, from Arlene and from Maxine Fortenberry and these people who have come to her home bringing food. And, even when she hears Maxine's thoughts, she's really just there to kind of spy. It's like a gossipy, looky-loo kind of situation that Sookie is in on. But, perhaps the rest of us would only feel.
She does have that comment where she says that she's numb, and it appears to be stoicism.
Yeah.
She really is stoic until she has that moment where she just bursts out and loses it.
Maxine Fortenberry, you put that pie down right now! This is Gran's pie!
Oh my gosh. Man. I mean, I could go on and on about Anna.
Hand it to Anna. I know.
Right? I mean,
Even in that clip, she's spectacular.
Spectacular. Every color of life is in this one episode.
Yeah.
And she just breaks your heart and hits every moment.
And it's funny. I have to say, I laugh at that line as I am also heartbroken.
Yes.
She hits, not only does she hit all the colors, she hits two colors at the same time, which is really impressive.
It's incredibly impressive.
Writing helps you tremendously. So, to have written a character who is actively processing during this episode. This is not an aftermath. This is an in the middle of Sookie's working through this. Next, we go upstairs with Tara and Lafayette, who are really the only people there taking care of her, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because after she loses it, right, then Tara steps in and says, okay, she needs some girl time. And then I like how she goes, Lafayette, come on.
Yes. Well, that she knows also that he's the only other one there who's there actually taking care of Sookie.
That's it.
And so they go upstairs, and one of my favorite lines of all series, is and again, it comes from Tara, who has the intelligence beyond her years, the wisdom beyond her years.
Stop worrying about being so damn appropriate. This is not an appropriate event.
I love that line. I love that line.
It's something I think we could all remember, that, what Sookie said about the pie, it's not weird. It's not inappropriate. She doesn't have to be appropriate. Something awful happened to her.
Yeah. And it's something you need to hear from another person when you're in that moment.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you need a friend to say what you're feeling is understandable and this is impossible and horrific.
Yeah. And to have two people there who are, in some way giving you permission to be there. And, Sookie is, a good girl in quotes, in that, she's been raised probably to have certain ideas about appropriateness. And it's really lovely that Tara can give her that space, especially because, Adele was a second mother to her in a lot of ways. And I'm sure Tara needs to grieve in herself, but she keeps it together for Sookie.
Another moment that I just love, Rutina plays it so perfectly as always, but Sookie says, Gran is really gone.
Yeah.
And Tara takes a moment and then says, yeah. She is. And the way she says it is just, it really hit me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, their relationship is so highlighted and strong in this episode.
It is. And it's so highlighted and strong when she protects her from Jason.
Yes. Which, we've seen a lot of sides of Jason, but I don't think any of us expected genuine violence out of him. But, I mean, this whole half of the episode is about how people are processing their grief. And unfortunately, Jason goes to the really worst place he could go.
Yeah, it sets him up for where he goes next, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because the V is coursing through his veins, and he's grief-stricken, and this is how he processes, and it's not ideal.
Right. Well, and it's interesting to think, like, is the V, the V is causing this sort of extreme reaction potentially because it's in his system.
Yeah.
But I also think it's interesting how this happening at the time that he is still residually high, does that contribute to his need for the V in the upcoming episodes? Because we're going to see that he gets deeper and deeper into this.
Yes.
And I think the fact that he had this huge loss right when he had this new experience is, in a very formative and a dangerous way.
Yeah, and I can relate to that in a way. It's sort of an embarrassing moment to reveal, but, because there's that, I think that's in this episode where he then goes to his truck and looks around, drops some V on the ground or something, and he looks through the leaves for it. I had that with a Xanax when I was dealing with loss. I had very few, and I was really struggling, and I was hoarding them, and I dropped one under my bed and all the cat hair.
Wow.
And, brushed it off and found it and took it, and it was like a quarter of one that I had left or something. And I thought, yeah. And I remember at the moment in my life going, wow, okay, this is where we're at. So that really struck true to me. And I thought the writers really set him up well for his next arc. That's so incredible.
So then we move into the funeral.
Yes.
We haven't had enough sort of processing of this. We have to sort of sit with it some more.
Yes.
And this is interesting because one, Sookie can't stay, and we have the introduction of Uncle Bartlett, which is still kind of a mystery. We'll find out more about that next episode. But all of it compounding means that she runs. Yeah. And we have these dual scenes with Sookie and Jason versus Tara and Lettie Mae.
Yes.
We can start with Sookie and Jason's maybe.
Yeah.
The first thing that strikes me about it that I absolutely love, and I give full credit to Audrey Fisher, our costume designer, is that Jason's suit is too big for him.
Yes.
It makes him look so small. He looks like this 12-year-old kid who put on his dad's suit because he had to look, quote unquote, appropriate,
And he put it on poorly, like the collars.
It's not buttoned up. He hasn't,
Yeah, it's like... It's perfect. I thought, Audrey, gosh, every detail.
Every detail. And that he didn't have the presence of mind in this current state to really, sort of step up for his grandmother in that moment that way, or for Sookie. And but it also, it adds to the sympathy because obviously we're going to be with him for 7 seasons.
Right.
And we don't want him to just be someone who hit his sister. He is a complex person.
Yes.
He gives all of these excuses for why he did it.
Yes. Yeah, that line where he goes to her and he's like, Sookie, all we have is family. And she says, we have nothing.
Yeah. And you can see why, right? Like, being hit by someone feels like
at that
an
moment.
Inexcusable, unforgivable moment.
Yeah,
especially when you're that low, when you're suffering from a loss. And yet he's asking her to forgive him. And what's fascinating to me is that then we go to Tara and Lettie Mae.
Yeah.
And they are having almost the exact same conversation.
Yes.
And it's perfect because, Lettie Mae's just made this emotional speech about Adele. And I, just like Maxine Fortenberry, was very moved by it.
Yeah,
you can tell she means it genuinely.
Yes.
But again, Tara sees right through the bullshit and immediately kind of calls her mother out.
You had no right to speak for that woman. She was more of a mother to me than you ever were.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments that like swayed me. I was so moved by Lettie Mae, and then Tara expresses this moment. I'm like, oh my God, she's right as well. And and it's this same moment of someone who has hurt Tara so much and has all these excuses for why.
Right.
And then asks for forgiveness. And it's this wonderful question of, must they forgive? Is that required of family? Is it not?
Yes.
who decides.
And how do you decide that? And I'm actually asking you, Deb. I'm asking the audience because this is a theme in my life for a bit and currently where people do horrible things and hurt you.
Yeah.
And how do you, when you understand the reasons, but yet you're hurting?
Yeah.
I honestly don't know how to deal with that. And I think as Lettie Mae is giving that speech about her demons, my mind literally explodes at the conundrum of this in life where she does have demons. She is a good person underneath, but yet when you love someone who's doing these things, how do you process, how do you deal, how do you set boundaries and love them and forgive yourself? So Deb, I need an answer from you today in this podcast, but so I'll give you a minute, but at least I'll let you email me later on how I should deal with this in my life. But that one speech that Lettie Mae gives about that, I think is really beautifully written.
Please, baby, just listen. All those terrible things I did to you, it wasn't me who did them. I have a demon inside of me. What? A demon. Living and breathing inside me. Eating me up. Don't you laugh at the devil, Tara Mae, because he's as serious as cancer.
I'm sorry. You have a demon inside you?
Oh, fuck me, that's too good. It ain't funny. You have no idea what I go through wrestling with this demon. I try and do right. I try so hard, but it breaks me down. It poisons everything. I want to be the mama you deserve.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just that moment where we're going to speak with Adina Porter today about her experience, sort of the complexity of Lettie Mae. And I think her insights into playing flawed but sympathetic, but controversial all at the same time, and what moves people to take the wrong action. You know, it's just a really beautiful exploration into that she did, a really brave exploration, I think. Well, let's take a break for a quick bite.
The True Blood Bible, Vampire Blood 102.
1. Vampire blood can temporarily give humans super strength.
2. The effects of vampire blood will wear off with time, but are also quite addictive.
3. However, a very large amount of vampire blood will create a bond of feeling between the vampire and the consumer? Is that the right word?
Maybe recipient.
Ooh, I like recipient. Allowing the vampire the ability to sense the recipient's emotions and whereabouts.
The role of food in this episode called Cold Ground. I think Lafayette sums it up quite nicely.
Wait till a man's heart is through his stomach. That shit true as gold. You put some love in your food and folk can taste it. Smell this. You can smell the fear and nastiness coming off that current bread.
Tastes just fine to me.
See, bitch, you gonna wish you ain't did that. Watch.
First of all, hilarious. Kern bread, which is pretty
hilarious.
I'm sure it was all Nelson.
Yes. And that Jell-O line, I also have to say, what is with white people and Jell-O? And I'm like, that is true. My life has been full of Jell-O.
Has it? See, as a white person, I haven't had that much Jell-O in my life. I think it might be a Southern white person thing, maybe.
Okay, I'm from the Midwest. There's a lot of Jell-O.
Okay, interesting. Not a lot in New York City.
I was going to say that shot of that table was my childhood.
Really?
Yeah.
See, there we go. We didn't have the space for that. You know, like, where are you going to put all that Jell-O in New York City? But I mean, it's just amazing. And actually, the fact that the wake starts off with this, I can't tell if it's weird or wonderful or probably both, but like a casserole eye view shot.
Yes. It is so weird and wonderful.
It's so weird and wonderful. As Maxine Fortenberry walks through the wake with the camera right there, and I think we gotta give credit to Nick Gomez probably for coming up to that, maybe the cinematographer.
Yes.
But it doesn't look nice. It doesn't look tasty, whatever tuna casserole she's carrying.
I know.
And as we said, it's kind of this Trojan horse for her to just get in the door and get all of the dirty details about this murder. And it actually has nothing to do with love or concern for Sookie's family. So I agree with Lafayette. I think that casserole's cursed.
Yeah, boy, I know. And it's fun doing this podcast because I heard about these. I listened to these scenes at the table read, and I read the script, of course, but I didn't realize how incredible using food in this episode is.
Yeah.
It's really huge.
So to that, we swing to the other end of the spectrum, and we have this long pie eating scene for Anna Paquin as Sookie, as she finally gives in to her feelings. And this is, the opposite end of the spectrum that Lafayette is talking about, where Maxine's casserole is cursed.
Yeah.
Gran's pie is blessed. It's full of love.
It's love. She's eating love. It's like, and again, like Anna just kills it. She just breaks my heart as she's ingesting Gran's love. It was so beautifully done on everyone's part.
Yeah. And it's a long scene, as an actor, moments like that where you have to be very vulnerable and very open, they can be a little fleeting. And it's, again, such a credit to Anna that she sort of could sustain that feeling through such a long scene. But also, knowing Anna a little bit and how she works. And I'll be so curious, when we finally get the chance to speak with her about her process. But I've done a number of scenes with her where she had to cry. Yeah. And she's one of those miraculous actors who can kind of jump from one to the other. She can be cracking jokes between takes and then be there, 100% present, emotionally available the next minute. So I picture this scene and I can see her cracking jokes with the crew and like having a great time and then being 100% professional on it, delivering every take.
Yeah, she is such a pro.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The point of this moment that is so beautiful because it leads to this big decision in her life. And, I know Gran was the person who always encouraged her to try new experiences and to open her heart to new people. And then that and the sort of fragility of life that she's experiencing, leads her to, go and get dressed and seek out Bill Compton.
Yes. And again, Audrey Fisher picked that most romantic, most virginal nightie.
Yep.
And again, you know how hard it is to run barefoot outside? Your feet will always hit something painful.
Absolutely. Now, they had like little ballet slipper type things sometimes for the far shots.
Right.
So you could kind of go for it. But this is also, we spoke with Nathan Barr. This is the moment where he got to really shine as a composer. So he got to do this grand romantic score to cover her grand romantic, white nightie run across the cemetery.
I love how there's the music when she's looking out the window as the sun is setting, waiting.
Yep.
And then the music changes completely when she can go.
There's
can
like
run
a freedom
to him.
To it. It lets loose, I think.
It lets loose. And then Bill walks out on his porch because he feels her coming.
Yep.
And he looks, he's using his senses to perceive what direction she's coming from. It is the most romantic, and he sweeps her into his arms.
I know. But then here's the fun part for me is that, all of this poetic license that we have around the beautiful imagery. But when you get down to like the bare knuckle facts of this is, obviously, what's the first thing you want to do after you eat half a pie? Clearly.
Right. Oh, yes.
It's go get naked with somebody.
Yeah, I never feel like going into a coma. I always feel like losing my virginity.
immediately.
Yeah.
And then between, he sweeps her up in his arms and he takes her inside. And then somewhere in the cut, they've gone, pause. And they've lit 100 candles. They've put a roaring fire in the fireplace, despite the fact that it's probably a 98-degree Louisiana night.
Right.
And presumably they've washed her feet from all of the barefoot running.
That is so true. And you know what's funny is I was pausing to look at her feet because I was like, she is so tough. I think I see toes and not ballet slippers, but I did miss the apparent vamp speed that must have lit 100 candles. Who has 100 candles?
I just love it. I think but again, it's in a show like this.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a flaw. I think it's
I didn't even notice it.
Like mwah, like chef's kiss perfection of like poetic license.
Yeah.
We're going to do this because this is about what the feeling of this is more important than the reality of this.
Right.
It's more important that we all get swept up in this moment so that we feel what Sookie is feeling.
It's a big moment.
And in fact, we're including this in the food segment because Bill also gets to ingest this episode because Sookie allows him to feed upon her.
Yeah, that's a big moment, isn't it?
It is.
This is a big moment that kicks.
It's a big moment for
I keep
Sookie.
saying this, it sets up the whole series, but it's a big moment.
Well, and also I think it's interesting, a lot of shows will do the will they, won't they?
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of cuts right to the chase. We're halfway through the first season and our heroes have gotten together.
Yeah. Vampires just showed up and she dated one, now had sex with one, and now has been bitten.
Yeah.
She feels safe with this guy. She said earlier in the episode, I can be myself.
Yeah. And it's nice, we end this episode with full stomachs all around. So we now have a very exciting guest to talk with today. We can't tell you how much we want you to hear what Adina has to say. Adina Porter plays Lettie Mae Thornton throughout the series. Such a complex role, such a compelling interview. Hi, Adina. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks so much for wanting to chat with me.
This is gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting because you have this great arc in season 1. You pop up a bit, and then this amazing arc in season 7.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk to you for 8 hours because we've been watching the episodes over and over.
Yeah,
we're just in love with your performance.
Thank you.
So first, we're asking everyone, how did you get the role? So tell us, how did this happen?
Yeah, how'd that happen?
Judy and Libby called me in to audition, So I was the first one up, and I remember being in the waiting room and I was not nervous about this audition because I had just had I just found out that I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And I had they call it a CBS, I guess. Those these special kind of tests to make sure everything is okay. Right. And I remember thinking, I'm not nervous about this audition, but I am a little nervous about that test. I hope that test works out well. So I did the audition. Alan was in the room, and I do not look up people beforehand.
Right.
So I did not want to get nervous. So I do it, and Alan asked me to do it again a bit more drunk.
Okay.
And the audition was the eulogy for Grandma's, Sookie's grandma's.
Which is literally the episode we're excited to talk with you about. But great.
That monologue.
Wow.
And so I did it. And I remember asking him, because I always ask if I did what you asked me to do. So I said, is that what you wanted? Was that drunk enough for you? Because I usually play high. And they laughed and they said, that was good. And I left, and I felt very good about the audition. I later on found out that Alan had someone else in mind who was on a Broadway show at the time. And the only reason why they were holding those auditions was in case she couldn't get out of the show.
Wow.
Okay.
And then I later on found out that Alan was so impressed with my audition, he didn't want to see anybody else. But Judy and Libby said, there's a room full of people out there waiting, so we got to go through everybody else. And he was like, okay.
Wow.
I was driving home, and on the way home, I got a phone call from my doctor, from my OBGYN, who told me that the CVS was really bad and that I don't know if this baby would make it to term and whether you wanted to terminate. And we had Jack at the time, and we had already talked about it, and we knew that if the CVS came back really bad, we were going to decide to terminate. Something I now know that I had the right to do. But in the middle of talking to my doctor and crying with my doctor about this decision, because it was something that we wanted, my agents call me and say, you booked True Blood.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember thinking, God's funny.
Wow.
God is funny.
Wow.
I had no idea that True Blood was going to change my career. I just knew it was a job. And at that point in my life, I got excited about every single job. You know what? I still get excited about every single job I get.
Yeah.
And if the pregnancy was viable, I would have had to tell people that I was pregnant. Originally, Lettie Mae was supposed to appear in 8 episodes in the first season and then get killed off.
Saved by your talent story.
And my old ovaries.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
That's remarkable, though, to have that. I mean, Lettie Mae's story is a mother-daughter story. It's a story of a parent, and to have those two things, such an together. I mean, you're right. I mean, that is somehow feels like more than coincidence. You know,
I am beyond grateful for my beautiful teenagers and my tight pussy.
There you go. 3 wonderful things right there.
Yes, so that's how I got the job.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. That is truly, I mean, there's nothing like life and children and choices to put jobs in perspective, you know?
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into this a little bit. I'd love to know right from the start as you're reading it and you're getting even, you know, through the first few episodes that you're playing, is there, you know, what excited you about Lettie Mae? What scared you about Lettie Mae? You know, if you can remember any of those sort of initial gut feelings.
There's a poem that I think of whenever I think of Lettie Mae. She thinks her body has no glory, but if she could dance naked under palm trees and see her image in the river, she would know. But there are no palm trees on the street, and dishwater gives back no images. And that's what I think of Lettie Mae. Lettie Mae just didn't know. She just was raised at a time when the world did not value dark-skinned, poor girls with nappy hair. And I have family members who also grew up in that time. And so I didn't have to go very far to access Lettie Mae. And I'll just tell you, my 2 sisters, they didn't watch True Blood because they thought that Lettie Mae reminded us too much of Mom.
Wow.
They're like, yeah, we just can't. And Mom wasn't an alcoholic.
Sure.
Mom wasn't really religious, but Mom could not see her image for the beauty that it was. Only because Mom was steeped in the racist motherfucking world that we live in.
Wow.
So I feel beyond grateful that I could exercise those demons. And I chose the word correctly, those demons.
You did.
Yeah.
And got paid for it.
You did.
Yeah.
By exercising all that crap out that I don't pass on. That was my family was steeped in.
Oh, you made me cry twice already.
My goodness.
Well, that's what Lettie Mae's supposed to do. It's supposed to make the crew laugh and the producers cry.
Wow.
I loved how complicated Lettie Mae, well, I'm going to say is, because for some people they're just tuning in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think your point is, straight on, because, the way that she treats Tara is in many ways hard to forgive. And yet we love her and we feel for her and we want her to be better. We want her to get better. We feel her sickness in many ways. And that balance is so beautifully struck by you. I think you don't hold back on her flaws, and yet the humanity in her.
Yeah, we root for her. It's just terrific.
Thank you.
Means we love her, and we see why Tara has the same hopes that she has. And we're just, I think, so blown away. One of my favorite scenes from that first season is the bank scene. Which is, you sway in 500 different directions in that scene. And as an actor watching that, I'm like, how did she fit all of that into what's a 2-3 minute scene? And I look up to you in that moment.
Oh,
I think,
sweet. Thank you.
It's wonderful to watch because, in a way, for me, I see how smart Lettie Mae is. She is working every angle she can. It's just that alcoholism has such a hold on her that she can't use it to fight the alcoholism. It's only in service of it, but she's looking for a cure at the same time. And we need it in a way to convince skeptic Tara to go forward with this crazy plan that Lettie Mae has, which you chose the word so well, is an exorcism.
I never thought of Lettie Mae's problem as alcoholism.
Oh, okay.
I thought of it was poverty and and undereducated. I just thought that she just was alcoholism, or the alcohol was just a way. It was a symptom. A symptom of being stuck, poor and uneducated, or undereducated. Because she was smart in other ways. Or she is smart in other ways.
She is.
Or I am smart in other ways.
You are.
Because unlike plays, where someone else gets to do the role, and it's like, this person's interpretation of, they ain't doing it's in the can. I am Lettie motherfucking. So I can claim her.
Yeah.
I'm so cheeky.
Yeah, I think that's why it impresses me so much, is because, like you just said, it wasn't the alcoholism. That was the result of something much deeper and more affecting.
Can I tell you how the wigs came about?
Yes, please.
Yes, wig story.
The wig story.
How'd the wigs come about?
I had my hair permed or straightened for the audition, and I'm giving my son a bath. And he's splashing. And the words come out of my mouth, "Baby, don't splash mommy's hair."
Oh.
And I thought, wait a minute, I would tell my son not to splash in the bathtub so that my hair doesn't go back? Bullshit. Right. No, that's not how my life is. That's not how I'm going to be a mom.
Right.
So I cut my hair again and made it a fro. Well, then, when it was time to go back, paranoid me, I was like, I have to go back looking exactly like I did at the audition, or exactly like I did with the last, because I don't want them to change their minds.
Oh,
right.
So I got a wig. I got
a
wig. I got a wig, and I showed up, and then in the makeup trailer, they were like, "Well, wigs, what a great idea." And Lettie Mae can't have expensive wigs. And so that's because Lettie Mae would never have the guts to have have natural hair.
Wow.
Right?
Right.
Because she doesn't, you gotta have a vagina to have natural hair.
Yes, you have to have a vagina.
Did I say that? I meant, you have balls.
Good, strong vagina.
Yeah. But that's, but ladies, you can wear your hair any way you want to. I'm just saying that Lettie Mae, it was always about, how to look as close to white as possible. And so she would straighten her hair. So that's how the wigs came about. And we started darkening my teeth because one of my late husband's friends, I remember him watching the show, so I must have started season 2 or something, started coloring the teeth because they were like, your teeth are too good for how much money you have and everything else.
There's a line in there's so many great lines, but at the funeral, this is so sweet. You say, and we might throw to it or have me crying and reading it. When I was going through some bad things, my daughter would go stay with her, Mrs. Stackhouse. And I always knew she'd be just fine. Adele Stackhouse took care of my baby when I couldn't, and I'll always be grateful for that.
Yep.
Right? Just breaks your heart.
Well, there's that saying, it takes a village, right?
Yeah.
And I am beyond grateful that I have girlfriends that I can, and boyfriends, families, that I can drop my kids off at if you have that audition that comes in last minute.
Right.
I appreciate that because, Lettie Mae couldn't because of her demons of her not being able to, but then also Adina Porter, who's as sober as a judge, also has friends who could take care of my kids when I am, as a single mom, out there making it happen. So beyond grateful.
Yeah, community is a huge part of this show. We keep commenting on the Southern small town feel that just I don't feel like we have in our lives today. But that's amazing if you do to some degree.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
For better and for worse, all of what comes with that.
Right.
Yeah, people in your business.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to have Lettie Mae speak for Gran because Sookie tries to and doesn't have sort of the space for it in that moment. Her just having died and hearing all of these voices as she can, and it ends up being that Lettie Mae is kind of the perfect person to speak for Adele in that moment, in a way, because they share so many experiences of being a parent, of loss, of things like that, and so it's sort of this surprise that comes out of left field that Lettie Mae is such a lovely speaker. And then we get into this interesting, I'd love to speak about your relationship with Rutina, and as actors working together as peers, but also playing a parent. And for you as an actor, how does that work? Do you keep those relationships very separate, or you allow some of the feelings to kind of help you through it, or what is your process with that?
At that point, I was a new mom, and a mom of only a baby. So I didn't have the same kind of wisdom that I have now with being with parenting teenagers. But I felt, as an actor who has been in this business longer than Rutina, I had it was like a parent, or not like a parent, but I've gone through this road. I've been on this road longer than you, so I can give you. When you say that, what I hear, that kind of feedback.
Right.
Because I would never say, look, let me tell you, because she went to Juilliard, right?
Yep.
So I'm not going to tell her what to do, but I will share with her from experiences that I have. And I'm not as, just from what, if she would say something, I would share. And maybe because we both are theater people, maybe because we're both Black women, we liked having it done in the first or second take. So we used the rehearsal as a rehearsal, and it got to a point where it was in the can on the second take. And the crew, it got to a point where the crew would just say, well, we're going to be done soon because these people, it's always, we get it done in second take. So that it became let's do it in the second take. and sometimes even the first. So that's what, so that we felt like, well, we don't want them to, we want to be economical. So we always want to be like, those two sisters are saving us money. So that's how we like to think of it. So that we always were like, we're going to get it done the first take, and just because we're going to be like, well, we don't have to worry about those two. And we just kind of did it like as job security. So that's how we
it does feel good to nail it, doesn't it? It's like,
we just made sure that we were super prepared. We knew the words backwards and forwards, so that we could have fun and knock it out and not search for words. And I lived by the motto of making the crew laugh and the producers cry, so that I want the crew to feel, I want to feel comfortable being naked emotionally around them. So I want them on my side. And so entertaining them, laughing, doing it quickly so that, because I can go back to my trailer, they can't, or they don't have one. I want to keep them as happy as possible, so that their energy, I can feel that they don't mind holding that bounce, so that I get a little bit, extra light. Tina and I both come from families that gave us lots of material to share in these situations, because we're, like I say, we're steeped in it.
I always wondered too, isn't like, it's kind of cathartic in a way for me to be the creator of the feelings when in real life loss hits me. But when I'm on set and I'm playing loss, it's somehow, I think, helpful for me. This episode is a lot about loss. I know you've experienced your own loss in life.
I just am beyond grateful for my imagination, because before Madison died, I did not have anyone close to me die.
Yeah.
For folks who don't know, my beloved husband dropped dead right before season 7. Yeah. And it's been 8.5 years. Not an hour goes by when I don't think about him, even though I've loved and have been loved. Our children miss him. But I don't regret any moment of my life that I've gotten to love deeply. I know that love exists. I'm even going to say that it still exists, because things keep happening. I just kind of go, I am a human being that has been loved. I am a human being that has experienced love. And I just feel beyond grateful. I am beyond grateful.
Yeah.
Season 7, my father died season 7. And here I am going, every once in a while I would go, gosh, I should really cry. I should really be able to cry more, since like the 2 closest men in my life have died, but this is all I got, but hopefully it's enough.
Yeah. I had a big loss in season 7, and I was just so grateful to have a community. I think it was really huge.
Yeah.
Sure.
I have to say that I also am one of those actors who I will do whatever the writers decide. So I don't look forward to, I don't hope, I don't imagine where the character is going to go. I read and find out what the people above me decided where the character is going to go, and then I have my fun is figuring out how the character is going to go. I don't think I've ever said, "Oh, my character wouldn't do that." No, I don't. I've never said that in my life.
Yeah.
So I had no visions about what it was, how they would resolve it themselves. I just was, you tell me what you need and I'll deliver it. That's how I think about the character arcs.
Sure.
When you think back on the True Blood set, because each set has a feeling and it's different, is there anything that you remark on in your mind or that you miss?
So when I think of True Blood, I think of being surrounded by really sexy naked men and being like not fazed by it. Mm-hmm. That we got so used to it.
We did.
That it was just like, that's Tuesday. And there are other women who are like, how could you? And I just would be like, I'm behind him in line, and I'm deciding, is he going to eat that or I'm going to eat that? It's just
yep.
That's just the way we were.
Lunch.
When I think of I think of the table reads when I think of True Blood.
Yes.
I think of us all being around the table, and we would read, and then Alan would say, just two people sitting at a table talking to each other. Remember he would say at the end, just two people sitting at the table talking to each other.
And there would be 45 speaking roles. Right? It was like, because it wasn't a table, it was 6 tables connected in a big circle. It was so intimidating for guest stars. I love that you brought that up, because I think it's something I wanted to tell the audience, is that we would get together every episode and it would be at lunch. So if you were filming, you'd go grab your food and then you'd take it and eat it in between your scenes. Yeah. And then we would read it, and we didn't read it, we acted it out. And it was the only time, it was such a precious time, I think, because then you split up and film your scenes. Yeah. But it was where we got to see each other. We got to hear the words out loud. We got to see how they'd land with somewhat of an audience. And it was, those table reads were really special.
Well, this has been fantastic, Adina. I mean, thank you so much for your candidness and your personal sharing. I mean,
yes. So beautiful.
Both of us, our hearts swell
today. You're very kind. Thank you. And I thank you very much for inviting me to join the remembrance. Remember the bottles of True Blood, it's in my refrigerator.
It's in your refrigerator.
Yeah, we're in the back.
For years.
It's
that's so cute.
It's just so I open it up and it's just like, oh yeah. We started off with telling the story about how I got this job. Life would have been so completely different if True Blood didn't happen. So I am, here goes again, beyond grateful. Beyond grateful.
Well, that will be the title of this.
Okay.
Beyond grateful. Thanks to Adina.
All right.
Adina, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Deb, I think my tear tracker is like buckets.
All filled up. It's all filled up today.
I mean, my Lord, I was trying to blow my nose off mic. Like that was so moving to me.
Well, for her to be so personal and candid with us, we most of our interviews have revolved around, the work and the inside baseball of it all. And it's so refreshing and lovely to hear, her personal stories of she remembers this show through what was happening for her in her life at the time.
Yes, and it's how I remember a vast majority of the show too. Because as an actor, you experience it with your life. You're not experiencing what people are experiencing when they watch it, or the parties at the end of the season. It was just so moving to talk to her. What an incredible person.
I think after watching her performance, this time, and realizing that, you know, even as a viewer, I didn't see as deeply into what she was doing. Now that she has shared the wealth of complexity that she brought to this role, I want to watch it 3 more times.
I know.
And try to catch these subtle moments. And I'm so blown. I mean, I was blown away the first time. And now knowing how much more there was under there that she was mining, I'm totally, totally amazed.
I feel like that with everyone we interview, because everyone's so damn good and professional at sets or what have you, that we just are enjoying the show.
Well, I'm continually impressed at just how invested everyone is. And that, dear listeners, is not the norm. There are always a handful of people in this business who are kind of just there to, like, because it's a job and they're not that invested, and they do their thing and they go home. And, like, I don't have a judgment against those people. That's, you know, within their choice. That's their job. But part of the reason why this show is so exciting and why we want to talk about it 12 years later is because every single person was invested to that degree.
Yes. Every single, that I don't even, I mean, has it ever happened before or since? I mean, it's really, really, really rare. It certainly hasn't happened in my career before or since.
Next week on Truest Blood, we look at the different ways belief can impact our lives, and we witness a backwoods exorcism.
Yeah. Like only on True Blood can you have a backwoods exorcism. And the terrific Aisha Hines, the exorcist herself, will be with us to spill all the details on her experience of getting the role and playing the role of Miss Jeanette.
But that's all for now. So thanks for listening, Trubies. Subscribe and follow wherever you listen to your podcasts, and we'll see you next week.
Y'all come back now, you hear.
Truest Blood is produced by Safe Haven for HBO Max. Executive producers are Janina Gavankar, Kristen Bauer, and Deborah Ann Wool. Our producer is Gabrielle Gallon, and our audio producer is Christopher Wool. Our theme song was recorded just for this podcast by Jace Everett. Additional music was composed by Timo Chen. And remember, you can watch all of the original episodes of True Blood on HBO Max.